Hello and welcome to Blue Abroad. I'm Dan and this is Analytics Corner, the rivals. Today we're focusing on North Melbourne Football Club. So without any further ado, let's get into it. 2019 saw the departure of Brad Scott. For a team that many people predicted to challenge for the A, it didn't really take off their year. I remember this time last year I made a prediction that Brad Scott was the first coach to be sacked, and I got a lot of hate from North Melbourne fans. So apologies for that, but I was right. But that being said, let's just have a look. They saw a dramatic improvement once he went. For me, they've started to move the ball, going from a more kick-mark-based game that's very, very familiar with Brad Scott to a more methodical, modern-day handball, quick, slick movement, get the ball up into the forward 50 quickly. And when you've got Ben Brown, that makes sense. Saw them rise up the stats chart really quickly. They actually yielded massive improvement, more so than any other side. And for me, it helped them utilise the pace in this side. It was a more apt game plan for what they have at their disposal. They do love to go from congestion very quickly to the outside and look to try and isolate Ben Brown on a one-on-one. And for me, Ben Brown is one of the most accomplished forwards in the competition. May not have been finals, but there's no question the passion of the Roos fans. They got behind their boys all the way. And with a taste of optimism around Arden Street, it should be a good year ahead. However, that being said, not making finals last year was disappointing. And they did secure trades targets the year before in the trade window. A side that should be pushing for the finals shouldn't be languishing where it was. And there was no real ladder improvement. So let's see what 2020 has in store with the new boys. Now, when it comes to trade and draft time, North Melbourne are usually one of them teams that just litter trade talk. They're linked with just about anyone who's out of a contract on stupid money, big money contracts. However, they ended up trading their picks, and it was kind of a very muted trade period. It was kind of weird. I mean, they did have a shy at Papley and they had a shy at a few other players. But for me, it was quiet down at Arden Street, which was weird. However, they did swoop in to acquire a very talented player in Aidan Bonnar. And now he's a stocky, explosive, midfield forward type player, has a decent pair of jets, good engine, former pick 11, so there's no doubt in questioning his talents. And he's shown a bit in the handful of games he has played. Now, traditionally he plays for half forward for GWS, but obviously he's stacked behind some supreme talent. So it made sense for him to take the trip down to Arden Street. Has a phenomenal Rain Man Sean Kemp-like vertical leap. And he combines that with sheer athletic running power. High jumps with skillful ball skills really make you stand out as an AFL footballer. And he'll definitely line up in this side. Should he get a run of games, I'd imagine he'll start to rotate through the midfield. And for relative nothing on the outlay, he's a new no-brain footballer. Add some grunt, good ball skills, good running patterns, and the ability to mark overhead are worth their weight in gold in this game, and should slot into the 22 quite nicely. A very good pickup by North Melbourne. After trading their first rounders, they had a limited pick stock, and Charlie Comden was probably, for me, just behind Luke Jackson in ruck stocks, and we know how highly I talked about him in the Melbourne video. He is a top player, and he has all the hallmarks for me of being a really good player. Now, I actually see him converting more to being a key forward. I think he spent a lot of time in his ruck because he had a growth spurt very early. So it's kind of like, being English and being over 6 foot, you always had to play basketball. Very similar thing in Australia. If you're tall, you play ruck. But he's got a fantastic pair of mitts overhead. Very strong, very good in the air. Technically very, very sound kick as well. And he's a fantastic big man to work on the ground. Now, there is some question marks on his ability to perform for 4 quarters, but then again, covering the draft as much as I do, that falls into the category of just about every player outside of the top 20. But for me, he's really going to put pressure on another player that has a good ceiling in Mason Wood. And I think this year, his ability to pinch hit in the ruck, with that becoming such an in vogue, and I keep saying that all the time, thing in the competition, having a forward who pinch hits in the ruck, very capable. He's going to learn off Todd Goldstein, who's been a valuable cog for all the years down Arden. He's going to really improve his craft. Working with Ben Brown, one of the best key forwards in the competition, if not the best, going to be really good for his development. reckon he'll see game time this year, and I think he'll be a really, really good player for you guys. And I'm excited to see him, like definite super coach pick for me. Next up was Jack Mahoney. Now for me, if we snap back to 2018, this guy was like top 10 in a lot of people's projections. Former mid who's converted to playing a small forward. Exceptional IQ, and he's a game changer with his distribution. When we look at the top modern day small forwards, your Camerons, your Papleys, they have vision, and it's a big thing that sets them apart. And he has the ability to hit up targets while turning and while on the move. He's very accurate on the move. He's a wily customer, he twists and turns, he's got very good foot agility, and he's a real cunning fox inside 50. He will definitely see game time from year one, and he'll be pushing for selection, I reckon, very early doors. Some question marks about his body, but I mean, you get them all the time. I mean, these guys are elite level athletes. They're eating steak and doing reps in the gym. They bulk up very quick. His consistency is another question mark, but then again, it is. But he's a wow type player for me. He's a really exciting prospect. And I think he's an absolute steal at where he went. Definitely get you guys down at Arden Street pumping. Flynn Perez was the final pick, and kind of had an injury interrupted couple of years, and that kind of benefited North Melbourne. They got to pick him up, and he did slide down the draft, but he's a live cracker of a midfielder. Pure outside runner, great acquisition, genuine raw, real pace. The guy is lightning. He might be light framed, but he uses his body size well. Very, very clever, very accomplished in the tackle. Gets the offload very often, and will probably be aiming for the back of the year. Get a nice run of games in the VFL and really follow his eye with interest. This guy is super clean, and for me, he's going to be a smoky to really break out and really light up the AFL. Supreme player. With Hall's injury worries, you've got a better version of him here. So let's look at the round one side. For me, the backline kind of, it's going to be weird to see how they adjust without Tomo there. But I mean, for me, Majak Daw comes straight in. And let me just say, it's great to have Majak Daw back in the AFL. Absolutely love the bloke. Love the way he plays football. His big beaming smile for me just makes what is great about football in Australia in general. And it's great to see him back. For me, I do think he plays his best forward, as that loose man down back. But for me, when he's floating and pinging marks, and that is kind of like what the new superstar of the competition position, isn't it? But for me, centre half back, he'll do really well. For me, a lot of it pins on how quickly he hits the ground running. He has been out of the game for a year, and it does take players a while to adjust. But for me, phenomenal talent. Great in the air. Really, really underrated footballer is Majak Daw. And I love everything about him. Pace, vision, tenacity. Big, big fan. Got McMillan and Marley there in the pockets, but obviously Marley's just been pinged with a ban, so I plumbed with McDonald. Had an injury rupt pre-season this year, but Luke is solid down the back, uses it well, finds space, looks to exploit it. McMillan is what you see, is what you get type player. He really does just shut down players, uses it well, very reliable defender, and he really does kind of buy into the Reshaw movement philosophy. Pittard for me is probably the best deal sweetener in AFL history. Solid performer, probably doesn't get the plaudits that he deserves. In a league where transition is key, he offers width, speed, he looks to take the game on. Very good with the ball in hand, looks to exploit space, and he's not scared of taking the game on. Robbie Tarrant, to me, solid one-on-one defender. And Atley just complements the back line. He probably doesn't get thought of as an elite player, but I mean, he's decent movement, and he's a very tough man to beat on his day. Delivers it by foot brilliantly. Midfield, then, you've got Jared Pollett, Cunnington, Demont, Goldstein, and Zeeble and Higgins as your followers. For me, Cunnington and Zeeble, pure pit bulls at their craft, aren't they? I mean, I like to see Zeeble in the midfield. I'm not a big fan of this forward line experiment. And for me, them two feeding off Goldstein just really works. It's an enjoyable thing to watch. They own the contest really well. And with the adoption of working it outside, it's really benefited their skill set because they are very good at winning ball and getting it and feeding it to players. No fuss footy and just moving it. Zeeble, for me, has that craft to break out of congestion, break out of traffic, and looks to take the game on, looks to hit up Ben Brown very early inside 50. And Higgins, just for me, is pure class as well on the outside. You can see why Geelong had a sniff. It's like a fine wine. But I mean, it is always good to remember that Father Time remains undefeated, and time is catching up. Injuries are starting to curtail. He has probably lost a lot of pace, but he uses it so well. Big money recruit, Pollock. He was solid last year, probably not spectacular, but I mean, what he does well. He's a very good user, very good at interceptions in the midfield. Really got a big booming kick on him, really exciting. And Goldie, we know, is just effervescent, and he's just a solid footballer. And for me, they'll be looking for someone to really, knock on the door, because obviously as well, he can't be around forever. Forward line, we went with Simkin, Larkey, Thomas, Turner, Brown and Zerha. Now for me, this is just burgeoning with talent. We talk about Carlton Football Club being a list that is like young and exciting. North Melbourne for me is equal. They've got some real excitement machines, and one of them for me is Taron Thomas. Big fan of him. I've got a feeling that he's going to break out this year. Good user, good pace, keen eye for the sticks. Zerha for me has just a limitless ceiling. Really showed signs last year. Real tenacious, real crafty footballer, good user. And for me, Ben Brown, statistically the best key forward in the competition. Very consistent. Larkey, Turner, they're showing signs. Really looking to build on last year. And Simkin just complements this forward structure for me. On paper potential, this is a real threat and a real tough forward line to match up on. The problem was, for a team that had massive marks inside 50, had a real poor conversion rate. If he can fix that though, there is solid goals here. When we look at the pine, there is a plethora of blokes at North Melbourne for me just pushing for the 22 spot. Davis Unanaki for me, he started to show what all the hype is about. A real good back end of the year, real good footballer. For me, he's very understated. People talk about other people in that draft, but this guy is a footballer. Make no mistake, you underestimate him at your peril. Bonar, we've discussed, real strong footballer. Jed Anderson and Wood just make the cut. In Wood's case, he has so much upside. He has so much potential, but the problem is he just seemed to kind of plateau last year, and it's like, where is the next thing coming? He's kind of playing that third forward position, which is so prevalent in today's game. He kind of drifts in and out of the games, but for me, if they can just stick to their guns, go up a gear, there is a hell of a lot of talent in this list. Hell of a lot of talent. So 2020, what does 2020 hold? For me, I think this is a bottom six side. Now, before you jump in the comments, I'm going to tell you why. See a lot of potential in this team, and I think that the sky is the limit. I think you guys will compete in finals sooner rather than later. But for me, there's too many question marks. Zerha, Wood, Larkey, they're young players, but can they get up to speed quick enough? I feel the lack of pace does hurt this side. And Shaw wants to avoid the corridor and kind of play it out there. For me, there's Higgins is aging, starting to get niggles, and I think this is like 1 or 2 injuries away from being seriously exposed. I think the back line has its issues too. And I think the game style is a dramatic change, and we did start to see it yield results towards the end of the year, but for me, it wasn't a dramatic turnaround like Carlton or St Kilda with their new coaches. And I think the question, will it work in the long run, is a valid one. Now, I want to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'd never wish poor success. Someone's got to be bottom half. But for me, there's just many question marks on this side. I think it's mid-table at best at the moment. And when you look at the key indicators of success in the comp, ground ball gets, inside 50 differential, it is mid to low tables, and then it's a wasteful side. First most goals kicked against it say that the back line does struggle to take intercept marks and relieve pressure. But they do get the ball inside 50 in ease, and they do take marks, but I mean the issue is they don't convert them. One of the poorer efficient sides inside 50. And that's just something that I can't take away from. Where the games are won, that is where it is taking chances, and I just don't see it as effectively compared to the other sides just at the moment. I think another year in the list, another year in the game plan, I think there will be a force in 2021. But for me, it's got some very good players. I don't think it has a genuine X-factor player yet. It has solid players like Cunnington and Zerha, and for me, I can't get over the injury concerns. I just think a couple of injuries and it crumbles, particularly down the back. They also lack some support for Ben Brown. They'll be really hoping Larkey and Zerha really step up, take some pressure off of Mason Wood. And if they do that, I have no doubt they will be fighting in the 8. This will go two ways. I'll have major egg on my face and you'll make the 8. Or reluctantly, I'll be right. But I mean, I wish you all the best. I don't hope it's bad, and I'm sorry I feel that way. But I'm welcome to take on any notes on board. My ones to watch this year. Now, I'm a keen admirer on Taron Thomas. I know I was negative in your 2020 predictions, but I mean, I can't emphasise how much class there is in this team potentially rising through the ranks. And this guy, Taron Thomas, is a real superstar in the making. Big raps on him when he came through the draft year. Flashy user. He likes to utilise his side, his speed, and he looks like he's put on a bit of weight, bit of muscle in the Marsh Cup. Really excited me to see him. I predict he's going to have a huge breakout year. Has great hands, he mixes that with speed and agility, possesses all the attributes for me to be kind of like that Michael Walters type player at Fremantle. Reliable in the midfield, potent up top, combining ball skills with good aerial craft and good forward pressure. Super excited this year to see what he'll develop into. Reckon he's going to go up a gear this year in the comp. So how do you beat them? How do we beat the Kangaroos? Good question. Well, I mean, one thing is, obviously, if they're not playing at home, you've got a chance. They don't travel well. Serious. But serious, I think you can exploit this midfield with pace. Quick movement, and you can create one-on-ones out of the ground. They do look a very poor team on defensive transition. The forward line, for me, just doesn't seem potent enough. If you can alleviate Ben Brown, you kind of stop the Kangaroos. And for me, until I see something change in that aspect, I always feel like you've got a chance. Every team in the competition plays with an elite level lockdown defender, and Brown has proven he can't do it week in, week out. So stifling their entries, they do take a lot of marks, they are very inefficient, and that's one way you can do it. You can really affect Ben Brown, and it looks like they're relying on a player to step up, which hasn't happened yet. Warning though, this side can play ugly, and when the game gets ugly, they're probably one of the better sides in the comp. They're very fearsome in the contest. So I mean, for me, it's something about trying to really utilise the lack of pace and the lack of width and hit them hard. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Big shout out to Ra McGrath, big fan of the channel, big North Melbourne fan. I really wish you guys the best of luck, particularly to you. We've had some great discussions on the footing. I look forward to catching up with some of you at the North Melbourne game. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And as always, stay navy blue, folks.